Namaste. We thought of looking this time at the soul's cosmic journey from Sri Aurobindo's perspective. And it might be that we can't do it all in one go. How should it be possible to do it all in one evening? But we can segment it, perhaps. A couple of chapters to be looking at: the integral knowledge and the aim of life, 4 theories of existence, that's chapter 16. And then rebirth and other worlds, karma, the soul, and immortality, chapter 22. Those would be more or less the springboards for our work over a couple of weeks. I'd like to begin again with quotes that Sri Aurobindo has seized from Vedantic literature. One we know pretty well because we went through the Taittiriya Upanishad a verse at a time. And this one is from the 3rd chapter, 10th section, 5th. He passes in his departure from this world to the physical self. He passes to the self of life. He passes to the self of mind. He passes to the self of knowledge. He passes to the self of bliss. He moves through these worlds at will. And another which we cited last week from the Katha Upanishad, 2nd section, 1st part, 12 and 13. A conscious being is in the center of the self, who rules past and future. He is like a fire without smoke. So the big questions are before us, and we approach them with what facility the mind can bring to us, because we are still evolving through trying to get to a consciousness beyond mind. We have to use its language, which divides. Even when we dimly perceive unity, still we can't express it adequately in a divisive language. Brahman, the reality, is the omnipresent truth of things. It is what is real. It is transcendent. It is, in other words, beyond all things measurable and determinate. And still, while it is essence, it is the essence too of universal being, because all that stands forth from it, all that manifests out of it, contains that essence within it. So there is no place one can go in space and time and be absent the real presence of Brahman. Enduing everything with its reality, everything exists within it, supports all, is minutely and largely all. That essence is beyond the one and the many, yet it contains both and makes them manifest. There is no one until there is a many. But when this being decides to regard itself, to take cognizance of itself, as the Upanishad says, then that one becomes the many. The truth, therefore, is both in the becoming, that which is manifest, and in the non-becoming, that which is unmanifest, simultaneously. If you can use that term, because one is outside of time, the other in. Again, the difficulty with language. The essence of being supports both the world and all the beings inside the world. All philosophies swing as if they are laddering ropes from that incomprehensible truth. Is it? Is it not? Is it real, this becoming? Is it only the essence, the unmoving, which is real? In a mighty inner experience, we unite both in an awakened psychology. Personal knowledge, direct experience, not the quiz of the mind, wondering this or that, measuring this or that, but a knowledge that penetrates, becomes one with the knowledge by identity. When we achieve that state of consciousness, where only unified being exists, where beyond speech, as the Taittiriya Upanishad says, all things fall back from that, the mind unattaining. So, that is, the manifestation is, and hence, all that appears in the manifestation is also real. The individual is here. The personal is here, not just an impersonal vast. The eternal and the individual coexist. Sri Aurobindo has a paragraph which you can read for yourself on page 387 in the Collected Works of Sri Aurobindo. I'll quote from it here. Cosmos and individual are manifestations of a transcendent self who is indivisible being, although he seems to be divided or distributed. But he is not really divided or distributed, but indivisibly present everywhere. Therefore, all is in each, and each is in all, and all is in God, and God in all. And when the liberated soul comes into union with this transcendent, it has this self-experience of itself and cosmos, which is translated psychologically into a mutual inclusion and a persistent existence of both in a divine union, which is at once a oneness and a fusion and an embrace. So he is describing here the truth of a number of yogas, the Vedantic experience of Atman and Brahman, the realization of a universal Devata, the realization also of a beloved into whom one can come and move into, if not an absolute identity, a communion. All of this leading us to the point about the soul, that there is a true connection between the individual soul and the Supreme, which the Gita, as you know, identifies as Ishvara. So the seeming person here has a reality behind. The appearance is not all. There is something true in that identity, supporting it. There is a truth in the transcendent Atman, who is beyond all space and time, borderless, immutable, immune. But there is also truth in a divine personhood, who absorbs both of these states of being into itself. It is the Supreme Person. It is also the Akshara Purusha, the vast impartial self. It is also the cosmic whole, the deity represented as the universe. And it is each individual who is secretly a portion of that Supreme, moving through this universe for reasons inexplicable to the mind, but deeply known and identified by the Supreme Person, herself or himself. You choose. So these are fundamental truths of the infinite, which is Sat Chit Ananda, a conscious being whose nature is delight. The soul, what is the truth of our individuality, is born from the fiery force of bliss, from that conscious power. Sri Aurobindo describes a pinnacle experience. We'll read something like a full paragraph from page 164. A divine soul would live simultaneously in the two terms of the eternal existence of Satchit Ananda, the two inseparable poles of the self-unfolding of the Absolute, which we call the One and the Many. All being does really so live. But to our divided self-awareness, there is an incompatibility, a gulf between the two, driving us towards a choice to dwell either in the multiplicity, exiled from the direct and entire consciousness of the One, or in the unity, repellent of the consciousness of the many. But the divine soul would not be enslaved to this divorce and duality. It would be aware in itself at once of the infinite self-concentration and the infinite self-extension and diffusion. It would be aware simultaneously of the One in its Unitarian consciousness, holding the innumerable multiplicity in itself as if potential, unexpressed, and therefore to our mental experience of that state, non-existent. And of the One in its extended consciousness, holding the multiplicity thrown out and active as the play of its own conscious being, will, and delight. It would equally be aware of the many ever drawing down to themselves the One that is the eternal source and reality of their existence, and of the many ever mounting up, attracted to the One that is the eternal culmination and blissful justification of all their play of difference. This vast view of things is the mold of the truth consciousness, the foundation of the large truth and right hymned by the Vedic seers. This unity of all these terms of opposition is the real Advaita, the supreme comprehending word of the knowledge of the unknowable. This is his grand unifying experience, that one must inhabit all these poises simultaneously, and we might say, revolving from one to the other as is appropriate and auspicious moment by moment, according to the need of the divine will to express itself, sometimes leaning into the impartiality, sometimes into the deeply personal, sometimes exceeding all definition and scope. But always all are there. It is impossible for any of these to be fully absent from any condition, whether in the universe or out of the universe. So that really is the very definition of where the soul comes from. The soul's truest home is above, in that sublime condition, where the many multiplies the essence of oneness into uncountable conscious forms. Because they must be conscious. They come from consciousness force, Chit Shakti. Even in the multiplication, there is only one. The one remains. Purnam Madaha Purnam Idam. That's where our beginning is. In our pure soul consciousness or essence. And there, unity is secure. We can't lose it. But we can go on a cosmic adventure and live and act as if we have or would. And that is the cosmic game, the Leela. Brahman manifests simultaneously as a vast becoming, universe-wide, a cosmos, an ordered composition representing the infinite. Endless, not necessarily infinite. This Brahman in the universe establishes itself in worlds and planes, each of which exhibits an essential truth of the infinite power. Supramental, mind, life, matter. All of them capture some chord of divine reality. When they play with the others, each note harmonizes when brought into a synthetic unity. And who is it that's weaving them into a unity? But the ascending soul. The conscious person, the individual, is the charming being who brings divinity into nature and reveals its secret essence. At the same time, it threads together, through the process of evolution, all the worlds above it. It is the active soul in the universal drama that is key to reaching the farther goals of a supramental manifestation. Without the soul and its fructification in the universe, it cannot happen. It will not be done absent the awakened psyche. All of Brahman is available and reachable through the cosmic planes. And again, those cosmic planes are themselves secretly invested in an inner nature which is common to the evolving individual. The macrocosm is seated inside the microcosm. So we grow from stage to stage. We are growing in the light and the shadow. We need both. We have plenty of both. And as we grow, we assimilate life's sap in the darkness behind life. So far, our ascent is only partial. The distance to the supramental source is coming closer as we harmonize what constituents we have in our being through the emerging power of the soul. That can be achieved. That must be achieved. The soul evolving in life, the existence here, I don't simply mean prana, our existence upon earth, in which the soul is evolving, approaches a direct contact with the spiritual reality, whether it's through the mind, awakening knowledge, through the heart, awakening love, or through the willpower, awakening the perfection and skill in works that is necessary to achieve the transformative result we aim at. All three have to be there. We can't do without karma yoga. We can't do without the adhesion of our vital will working in a resilient and soul-reliant body. Depending on our elasticity and transparency, either the psyche emerges in this process or the spiritual is met somewhere in our phenomenal being. Something wakens up to that, and in awakening to that can influence and change our existence from that point into the rest of the nature. It's as if there is something, some energy from the spirit, some energy from the psyche that we can inject into almost through a syringe, and that syringe is the conscious psychic being who is sharp in its will, who purifies what it experiences and gets to the sap, to the deeper elements of what the lessons are in the universal experience. So this is a crucial development in us, that we either attain the awakening of the soul inside or an elevation of our consciousness into the nature of the Atman, into those sublimities. So the Brahman can be regarded subjectively as the single self, the only Atman, which is simultaneously the countless poises of the Jivatman who are empowered and involved in the divine will and its urge to manifest. This one multiplies itself. This single self can be many selves, all of them still essentially the same self. Unique, but common. The psyche, as the immortal here, moving through the cosmic grades, derives its immortality from the eternity of the Jivatman. So there's the great self, the many selves of the Jivatman like facets of a single diamond, and then radiating down from that diamond the possibility of a soul essence moving in the cosmos, representing here dynamically what that conscious being is above, inside, central to all being. So, looking upwards from the mind, the Jivatman seems to possess some unseen thread from above that is in some way, some secret communication with the psyche, guiding its development without interference. It nudges along the laboring psyche to take the next step, to seek for the next answer, but it does not interfere with it as the psyche explores with some sense of increasing freedom the universe around it, learning how to govern itself and its elements, which are cosmic also in nature, so that what accords in its experience accords with natural experience, and the whole of nature moves in solidarity with the growing soul. So, plane after plane, the psyche explores and masters being, sharpening, defining better and better its own individuality, and seeking deeper commerce with emerging souls around it, finding fraternity, harmony, kinship with all beings, great and small, utilizing all capacities as instruments that can be bent to the divine will, that can be purified, that can be, in a sense, put into the fire of Agni and reshaped into new instruments that will serve us even better. The old instruments eventually are worn out, just as our body is worn out, and replaced. The body has to be set down at some point, and the limited tools which have been evolved on Earth for the developing soul have to be improved, remastered, and in a sense, reshaped by a conscious creative energy stemming from Chit Shakti above, active in the cosmic consciousness here. From the daylight then into the dark. What we've talked about is a simple statement of how our soul here represents an eternal portion of the self from above, grows through the stadia of an involved cosmic hierarchy, and rediscovers powers that we have seemingly forgot, sews them all together into a new tapestry, a new garment, which, ever expanding, ever brightening, becomes a better and better body in which we can be housed for our next growth. When we have reached the conclusion of a life, we set that down, and then we digest. And then we take a season to organize and assimilate and to arrange circumstances that are appropriate for our next iteration as growing souls on earth, working in common with a global push for transformation. This is true of those who are most conscious, who have become most evolved among humans. But it is also generally true, perhaps at a slower pace, for all beings that are involved in the cosmic manifestation. So it's important to know the truth is the psyche is not destroyed by death. Right now, we see the sunny side of the mountain that we're climbing, and we can see its peak. The darker side is hidden from our frontal view, and that is where we go to, in a sense, learn the lessons deeply of all that we just experienced in a completed life. Our spiraling ascent, then, includes both the work that we do in the daytime and what we dream about in our psychic slumber afterwards as we prepare for the next. Both can be part of a single view when there is these combined realizations. The realization of the nature of the psyche that dwells inside, that the Katha Upanishad was speaking about when we started, a conscious being in the center of the self who rules past and future, a fire without smoke, and also when one lives in the vastness of eternity, in the reality of the Atman. Now, it is perhaps rare for souls to attain this, but they are not unexampled. People do this. Souls aspire and acquire both states of realization and fulfillment, and have done so in this very yoga that Sri Aurobindo has called integral, integrating all possibilities, but not simply the various planes, the realities inside, but a life that is integrated in connection with the wider cosmos around. There is nothing absent the reality of the self. And so an integral yoga must work in solidarity with all, with everyone. So who is our family? Everyone is our family. What is our community? The entire universe is our community. Not only those who have heard the names Sri Aurobindo and the Mother practice integral yoga. The yoga is cosmic in nature, and they are in the front, in a sense, the pioneers leading us. But we are really all together in that. So, I think we will read from Savitri, if you're still awake. I want to go, using in a sense Sri Aurobindo as an example in this, to Book 1, Canto 3, the Yoga of the King, the Yoga of the Soul's Release. And here he is describing Ashwapati, but really he is speaking of his own intimate experience, his own yogic development. And this is beginning on page 22. His was a spirit that stooped from larger spheres into our province of ephemeral sight, a colonist from immortality, a pointing beam on earth's uncertain roads. His birth held up a symbol and a sign. His human self, like a translucent cloak, covered the all-wise who leads the unseeing world. Affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's debt to earth and man, a greater sonship was his divine right. Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light ineffable, a strength of the original permanence, entangled in the moment and its flow. He kept the vision of the vasts behind. A power was in him from the unknowable, an archivist of the symbols of the beyond, a treasurer of superhuman dreams. He bore the stamp of mighty memories and shed their grandiose ray on human life. His days were a long growth to the supreme, a skyward being nourishing its roots on sustenance from occult spiritual founts, climbed through white rays to meet an unseen sun. His soul lived as eternity's delegate. His mind was like a fire assailing heaven. His will a hunter in the trails of light. An ocean impulse lifted every breath. Each action left the footprints of a god. Each moment was a beat of puissant wings. The little plot of our mortality, touched by this tenant from the heights, became a playground of the living infinite. This bodily appearance is not all. The form deceives. The person is a mask. Hid deep in man, celestial powers can dwell. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years an incognito of the imperishable. A spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery portion of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight, immortal in our mortal poverty. This sculptor of the forms of the infinite, this screened, unrecognized inhabitant, initiate of his own veiled mysteries, hides in a small dumb seed his cosmic thought. In the mute strength of the occult idea, determining predestined shape and act, passenger from life to life, from scale to scale, changing his imaged self from form to form, he regards the icon growing by his gaze, and in the worm foresees the coming God. At last, the traveler in the paths of time arrives on the frontiers of eternity. In the transient symbol of humanity draped, he feels his substance of undying self and loses his kinship to mortality. A beam of the eternal smites his heart. His thought stretches into infinitude. All in him turns to spirit vastnesses. His soul breaks out to join the oversoul. His life is oceaned by that superlife. He has drunk from the breasts of the mother of the worlds. A topless supernature fills his frame. She adopts his spirit's everlasting ground as the security of her changing world and shapes the figure of her unborn mites. Immortally, she conceives herself in him. In the creature, the unveiled creatrix works. Her face is seen through his face, her eyes through his eyes. Her being is his through a vast identity. Then is revealed in man the overt divine. A static oneness and dynamic power descend in him, the integral Godhead's seals. His soul and body take that splendid stamp. Beautiful people, beautiful souls. How are you all? Don't speak to me of your beauty, speak to the world. Carry that felicity out into life. Thank you for joining. Namaste. Look forward to seeing you again. Much love from here. Jai Ma.